Hi everyone, today we're gonna do a side part and I am so excited. Of course, we always want to start with freshly washed and blow dried hair. My client requested a deep side part, and so we are going to measure that, I want to say like an inch above the eyebrow, and this is how it came out. A technique I came up with is brushing the baby hairs out just to make sure that the part is what I want it to look like. Then I go in with creating the leave out for the left side. Another technique that I came up with is using the tail of my comb to act as a track. I place the tail comb right in at that part, right between the leave out and the rest of her hair. I place the leave out over the tail comb just to make sure I have enough. If the tail comb is showing, then I need more hair. If it's not, then I'm good. But in this case, my client wanted what I left out, and we're gonna work with that. And if the tail comb technique does not work for you, you can also use another technique that I came up with using my finger right at my client's ear, right before her ear, and just parting my leave out right at that section. Now I'm going to start with the leave out that is at the top, and I usually do an inch of that leave out. Of course, if your client's hair is thinner, you would do more. If the client's hair is thicker than this, then you would probably do less, but this is what my client wanted, and we're just gonna go with it. And as you're parting your leave out, make sure you're doing cleanups because you were not able to go over it again once you start that braid down process. I like to braid my leave out away instead of clipping it because I realize when you clip it and you're doing your braid down, it sometimes gets in the way, like the straightaway hairs gets in the way, so I like to braid it away. And I usually braid it in a, what's that shape, like a L, I guess, an upside down L, yeah. But I braid the top of it and then also the side. Again, my comb is always with me because I always want to make sure I'm not pulling any straightaway hairs, because that can hurt, in the long run when you're sewing. That little hair is a big deal, I promise you. So just make sure you're always cleaning up as you're braiding, as you're parting. Just always have your comb with you. Now that I've finished with the left side, now I'm going to go in with the right side, and I'm going to use the same technique, same comb over hair over comb technique. And usually on the right side, I don't leave too much, especially once I've passed that, what would I call it, like the center of the forehead. Once I pass that, I usually just leave like less than an inch. So this is the part that we're leaving on the right side, an inch, just like the left side. And this is what the sides look like. And that little widow's peak area, I usually leave out a little bit more and then a little bit less coming down to the ear. Before I start my braid down process, I usually like to leave an inch in the back just to loosen the tension of me braiding and also sewing the hair. It also helps if your client wants to put her hair in a ponytail or in a claw clip. My first braid down is usually in the shape of an L, going from left to right. I start my first braid with 3 small pieces of braiding hair. I use one at the beginning as I'm doing here, and then I do 2 in the back just to create that security, especially when I am doing the net application. That's the braid that I braid the net on. So I just want to make sure I have, the braids to be firm and very neat for my net application. I create my anchor braid in the back for many reasons. One, if my client wants to put her hair in a ponytail, I feel like the braid in the back, I'm able to like sew at an angle for it to, the track not show in the back. Two, I realize when I don't do this, when the hair gets older, because, maybe your client wants to keep her hair in for probably 2 months. Once that hair is grown out, it's still there, versus when you don't create an anchor, the hair is, very prone to like lift up easily, and you don't want that. Once I get to the left side, I part it in an angle, especially at the top part, I have a little curve. I realize that once I get to the sew-in part, once I've created that angle, it's so much easier for me to just, follow the pattern of that braid and sew it in that same pattern with it, which is at an angle. I'm going to connect my left braid to my right one using the loop method, and I love this method so much. So this is what I'm doing right now. I am just connecting them, and you always want to create a little tension at this part, just so you don't have like a big gap between the loops and the braid down. As I start on my left side again, I always create an angle with these braids. And what I mean by this is parting the braid and making it stop right by the ear. So once I do this, I realize that all the braids are very uniformed and it's not bulky in the back. You ever experience doing a braid down and once you get to the 3 last braids, you're not able to find the end into it? Or some of your, like those 3 last braids are all the way in the top, and that causes your braid down to be bulky, which is going to cause your sew-in to be bulky. And so that's what I mean when I say to part it at an angle, so that way all the braids will be lined up and, be, well, neatly aligned, I will say. I try to make every part for my braid to be an inch. I try to either make that smaller, but I definitely do not make it wider. I feel like the smaller the braids, the flatter it's gonna be, and also, the longevity of that sew-in. You're creating your loop, you don't want to pull too hard like I did. If not, just ask your client as you go along, hey, how is this feeling? Is it comfortable? Do you want me to adjust anything? Because even though this style is gonna is the tension of it is gonna ease up in a couple of days, you still don't want it to be an uncomfortable install, because the whole point of it is to be a protective style. And this is what I mean when I say to create your parts at an angle. So it's almost like a staircase motion. Once I get to where my leave out starts, that is where the last braid for this left side would end. Now that we're getting to the right side, every braid that you have should be at an angle, especially the first 3 braids of this right side. Now that we're coming to an end of our braid down, we want to put those 2 last hanging braid into that middle braid, which would be the final braid down. And by doing this, you're going to, put the left into the right, and then you braid both of them down in the middle. You also want to create a little tension because it is a little bit bulkier. So just to make it easier, for you, just create a little bit more tension, but not too much. Majority of my clients do their own takedowns, so I decided that to make it easier for them, I'm not going to sew that last hanging braid to the track, but instead to push that braid between the loops that I've created with my braid down. The whole point of creating a service is to solve a problem and not create one. So I feel like this was, my way of making things easier for my client. Once you followed those steps, this is what your braid down should look like.